How's it going, guys? It's Kass. As always, if you've been enjoying my content, then hit that subscribe button. So in today's video, I thought I'd talk about some potential problems that I foresee with Demon Hunter in 10.0, just based on some of the things that they've released so far for other classes. Now with that in mind, obviously I don't know about Demon Hunter's current situation in 10.0. I just know about the current iteration of Demon Hunter in the game and what's been released so far for the other classes. So I thought I'd take some time and just talk about some of the things that Demon Hunter has going on currently, and just talk about how they may translate in 10.0. So with that in mind, we're going to take a look at Death Knight, just because that's what we have access to so far. So once we look at the Death Knight specific talents that are on the right here, we can see that almost all of those are something you gain access to through the Death Knight tree. And then on top of this Death Knight tree, you have a Frost specific tree or an Unholy specific tree, just depending on which spec you have. That's basically how it's going to work in 10.0. You're going to have your base spec that'll give you some of the baseline abilities for the class, and then you're going to have the spec talent tree that gives you access to your talents for that specific spec you are playing. And we can see here that there's nothing missing here that you don't already have. And then on top of that, you gain access to some things like Blinding Sleep, which is very strong, Soul Reaper potentially, A-Bomb Limb, and then the extra charge of Rune Weapon, which is obviously very good as well, especially in shorter term fights. But overall, there's a lot of good things here. You can get access to a majority of it, and you really aren't missing anything that you had in 9.2.5. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at what Demon Hunter currently has and talk about some of the potential issues here. Demon Hunter sits in this weird category where it's never been in the game in a situation where talent trees have existed. And just given the philosophy on classic WoW with the whole you think you do but you don't, I don't really think the designers of the game were thinking about potentially going back to talent trees when they were designing this class. The thing with Monk is, while it also is in that situation, at least it was being designed in a world where talent trees still existed, so there's still that thought process in the back of their head. But with Demon Hunter, that's completely different, and once you actually start to look at the spellbook, you can really see the main issues here. Looking at these spellbooks, there's only one thing that's different, and for some reason Havoc has Blur as a baseline Demon Hunter ability, even though it's not and should just be under Havoc. And then aside from that, you have the utility that the class gets. You have Metamorphosis, Throglaive, and Immolation Aura. And then lastly, you have the things that are just quintessential to Demon Hunter, like Double Jump and Glide. And once we start to think about that, there's really not a lot here that could be put into a talent tree that makes sense. Putting things like Double Jump, Glide, or Spectral Sight on a talent tree make almost no sense. Those are things that are just thematically what make Demon Hunter, and taking that away in the form of making it a choice doesn't really bode well for the class. Feel the exact same way with Torments. I think having a taunt for Havoc is obviously good in some potential niche situations, and obviously you want a taunt if you're a tank, so having that as a decision doesn't make sense either. So that's 4 of these abilities that are already really out of the question. Then you have Sue Magic, Disrupt, and Imprison, which all are very good utility that probably will find their way on a class-specific talent tree. I think the main issue here, though, with these ones is there's not really much that can span off of here for extra points, aside from potentially having Blood Moon for Consume Magic, which could be interesting, having Rank 2 Disrupt as an option as well, which everyone's just going to take. Having Imprison, also have Detainment as an upgrade, potentially too. But honestly, if that is the case, I don't really see Imprison finding any use really outside of maybe dungeons that you need the sap. Then that really leads us with Chaos Brand, Immolation Aura, Throglaive, and Metamorphosis as the only thing that's left over here. Metamorphosis is something that probably should just be baseline as an ability just because of how much it means for the class. That doesn't mean that Metamorphosis ranks and things can't be on a talent tree, and honestly I think they are definitely going to be on a talent tree just because they need to find things to introduce to the talent tree in order to make it actually impact the class, make it so it's actually able to be filled out. So you're going to have things like the different ranks of Metamorphosis on there. There's also a world where Demonic Origins gets put in the talent tree, which could be really cool. making Metamorphosis a 2-minute cooldown, reducing the duration of it, obviously, potentially buffing it a little bit more than the PvP version currently, just to make it align with the other classes. There's a world where Chaos Brand finds its way on a talent tree, potentially like an improved version that gives a little bit more magic damage, but I don't really think it's going to push much further than that. And then finally, you have Throglaive and Immolation Aura. And I think these are going to be some of the more impactful talents that will be on the default Demon Hunter talent tree, because with Throglaive you could gain access to Fell Bombardment, Bloodlet, Master the Glaive, you could gain access to Serrated Glaive. There's a lot of potentially good options that could implement new things for the class. Imagine a world where you're in AoE, you get Fell Bombardment, and you have Bloodlet. The amount of dot damage you would do would be absolutely absurd, and honestly it'd be pretty sick, and the fact that Vengeance could get access to that would be really cool too. You have Immolation Aura, which will give you access to Growing Inferno, most likely, could potentially give you access to Burning Wound, also could give you access to the defensive layers that you got through the Vengeance specific Immolation Aura talent, or even the Fury Generation portion of the talent as well. But the problem is that's really it. There's really not much more here to add on a talent tree. And we need like 50 points for that to actually work out. And that's the problem, is there's just not a lot of overlap between Havoc and Vengeance that really makes sense to have default that you can switch between the two. And if we start taking some things from Havoc and taking some things from Vengeance, you're going to run into the exact same problem with the specific spec trees too, where there's not enough options to actually fill out all of the points that you need. And that's the issue that I'm running into when I'm making mock-ups for Demon Hunter. And also that's something that I really hope Blizzard has noticed, because if they haven't noticed that yet and they're leaving Demon Hunter to the back burner, they're going to hit that wall where they're like, I don't know what to put here. And it's not like they're going to implement a bunch of new talents and a bunch of new abilities for the class if they can't even make a spell tree for them. And that's the thing that I'm afraid of. There's 6 months until this expansion is coming out, and we haven't heard a single thing about Demon Hunter, and it's probably going to be the single hardest class to actually build good spell trees for. As always, if you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't like the video, F5 refresh, try it again. Maybe like the second time. Have a good one.